Flashy Flash will be the next SSR Plus character coming out in June, so here's everything you need to know about Flashy and whether or not he is worth pulling for. So let's get into his attack skills. So for his basic attack, he attacks a single target with 3 hits for 120% of his attack, and for his ultimate attack, he attacks all enemies with 5 hits for 120% of his attack. He also grants specialized acceleration to the ally in the same column, which increases the speed of that ally to 90% of Flashy's speed, which lasts for 1 round. He also removes 1 energy from the opponent's team, which lasts for 1 round, all of which costing 0 energy to activate, as his ultimate attack is completely free. And if you have his keepsake, you'll unlock his ultra ultimate attack, where he'll instead deal 150% of his attack. He'll boost the speed of the ally in the same column to 95% of Flashy's speed, and he'll remove 3 energy from the opponent. So his keepsake is very important to get if you do decide to get Flashy, because he does provide much more utility with it. Going through his passive skills, so for his regular passive, at the start of battle, he grants specialized acceleration to self, which increases his speed by 5%. And if the main target's speed is lower, he deals 300% of his attack to the main target. And after any character's action, he removes the enemy's basic acceleration, so this impacts current speedsters such as King Plus and Sonic V2. So Flashy will be able to completely remove their ally speed boosting passive, meaning that those in the same row as such speedsters will no longer be sped up for the rest of that round. So this means that you may need to start putting some speed gears onto your units in order to maintain your optimal speed order when going up against Flashy. If you manage to limit break him to 5 stars, he increases his speed by 20%, and if you manage to unlock his 5p awakening, he increases his speed by 25%, which is much needed in order to outspeed King users. Now for his awaken passive, at the start of battle, he has a 70% chance to trigger evasion, where he reduces incoming direct, extra, charge, and berserk damage to 1 damage. And after any character's action, if Flashy's evasion is triggered, he deals 400% of his attack to a random enemy not in any form of unyielding state, up to 3 times per round. If you manage to unlock his second awakening, then the ally in the same column will also have a 50% chance to trigger their own evasion. And whenever his evasion is triggered, he deals 400% of his attack and restores HP by 150% of his attack, which he can do up to 4 times per round. So his second awakening provides great utility for the ally in the same column as Flashy, which can be very helpful when going up against the current column meta characters such as Goketsu and Atomic Samurai. Now going through his enhancements for his talent page, I would recommend unlocking both of his talent pages, and from his second page, I would recommend upgrading his base attack, and from his third page, I would upgrade his base attack and bonus damage. Those should be your top priority. And then those marked inside the blue circles are also good stats to upgrade if you do have the spare talent points to do so. For his damage sigils, you can use sword sigils, and for his support sigils, you can use vitality sigils, but these sigils aren't a top priority to open, so you can save those for your more DPS and tanky characters instead if you do want to do that. In regards to his limit break, get him to 5 stars as soon as possible, as you'll be able to increase Flashy's speed from 5% to 20%, which a 15% speed increase does make a massive difference, as you'll now be able to speed tie with King. And in regards to his awakening, also get him to 5p as soon as possible, as being able to increase Flashy's speed by 25% makes him the fastest unit in the entire game, which is important in PvP in order to outspeed your opponents. You shouldn't bother pulling for Flashy otherwise if you can't pull his keepsake in order to unlock that 5p, since that really does make a big difference in PvP. Now going through his gears, so for his gear set, the best set for him would be a fiery set. Otherwise, the next best set is ninja, then either flash or monk. Don't bother putting any other set onto him, since speedsters should only be using any of these 4 sets that I just mentioned. And with his gears, you would want all 4 of them having attack speed, as you want to make him as fast as possible, as well as sneaking in some attack here and there to help with his bonus damage. Now you can decide to put HP speed or even defense speed gears onto him for the time being, since the main stat isn't a top priority, but replace them with attack speed whenever you can, as soon as you get a replacement for it. And for his buff gears, all of them should have attack, with your hero gear having speed bonus and flat attack, your duelist gear having crit and flat attack, and your S-class gear having bonus damage and flat attack. And if you manage to get an augmentation from upgrading your S-class gear, none of them are really useful for him, so you can completely ignore them, but a block augment would probably be the best for him, as it is quite universal with any character and it makes him survive for much longer. Now, I will also be providing some examples of what some lineups can look like with Flashy. With the high-end lineups, example 1 will most likely be the most common and popular and meta breaking team currently out when Flashy does come through, with your main grapplers being Goketsu and Garo, your main SBs being Boros and Geruganshub, and then your 2 spare slots will be Atomic Samurai and Flashy Flash. Now, I did decide to put Atomic Samurai in the same column as Flashy, however, in many videos when researching for this, they did put Goketsu and Flashy instead. Now, the reason why I didn't do that is because Breakthrough in this version of the game does work quite differently to how it works on Southeast Asia. So that's why I'm going to optimize with Flashy being sped up more, but obviously there's going to be testing that needs to be done. So if it doesn't work with Atomic being sped up, then you can always swap it with Goketsu. But those two should be your top priority in who you want to speed up with Flashy Flash. And then everyone else there is for your support. Your Garo is very good for breakthrough, follow-ups throughout the entire battle. Boros is basically the best Esper other than King, so you can use him for more damage sharing and more tankiness, and then Geruganshub, he has to be there for the core. Now with the second example, the main difference here is that you replace Boros with King. Now King can't really play his normal role as a speedster anymore, so he's more likely going to be there as a support for his drones to do follow-ups as well as healing from his ultimate. Now this is purely because even if you make a fast Flashy and King, eventually when they're all fully maxed out, Flashy is going to be faster than King no matter what. So even if your King is faster than the opponent's Flashy, as soon as Flashy attacks, he's going to remove that speed bonus no matter what, and then King just basically, he's not really being utilized. Like, you don't need to really put speed on him anymore. So it won't really work that effectively having double speedsters. So that's why you can put King in really any row. He's just there as a support character to deal some DPS and heals along the way. But you can still use him if you did decide to pull for King, because his drones can be quite annoying. And for you Silver Fang pullers, if you want to as well, you could use Silver Fang instead of Garo or Carnage, for example. If you really want to, you could try making him sped up with Flashy. I probably wouldn't recommend that because Silver Fang ain't really it. Breakthrough is really more important, but that's entirely up to you if you do have Silver Fang. Now with example 3, if you don't have as many SSR plus but still have a decent amount, you can still use Carnage. Obviously you can use Gale Wind. He's still a very decent grappler that you can use for his stuns. And then as your Espers, if you have Boros, if not, then you can use other Espers like RMG and ATT. And with example 4, if you don't have Atomic, you can still use Carnage. You can speed up Carnage to activate his out of control if you do decide to use Cruel on your heroes for Flashy Flash. So this helps with Carnage being able to utilize his out of control, and then he can do a lot of follow-up as per intended. And then if you do have some spare slots, you can sub in people like Child Emperor even, because the AoE can still be quite useful with these heals. If you have any spare grapplers like Watchdog Man instead of Gale Wind, that's also a very good alternative. So if you don't really have that many SSR plus, and this is an example of what a team can look like to at least optimize yourself in PvP. Now going through some of the lower end lineups, example 1, if you decided to pull a PvP column attacker like Goketsu or Atomic, you can make them sped up with Flashy Flash, and assuming that everyone did pull for Carnage, Carnage will still be useful for his damage reflect and follow up, and then you would pair him with an Esper of Sky King, because Sky King will boost the bonus damage of not just Carnage's damage reflect, but also Flashy Flash's follow-ups. So this is also a good combo to have, and then you can use a spare grappler like I put Watchdog Man in this example, just so that he can buff the HP of Carnage. Now if you don't have units such as Carnage and Atomic, then you can go with example 2, where you just have Atomic and Flashy with Geruganshub as your SSR plus, with Atomic still being sped up. You can use instead normal Goketsu, which you can get from the backup stick previously, and pair him up with Linlin. Linlin's a good substitute as a grappler because she can do heals with a increase in heal rate, which Goketsu also does. So you can have a lot of healing rate to help out your Atomic to keep them alive for much longer. And then in your spare Esper slot, you can decide to use another spare one that you got during the LSSR era, like ATT, or you can even use Awakened Vaccine Man, because Awakened Vaccine Man, he can be able to withstand those shields and get another life. It just depends on when he activates his force field. If he activates his force field after the first Undying shield already activated, then it will count from then on, and then he can gain an additional life. So basically what I'm trying to say is that he can get another extra life if he does die somewhat quickly. You don't really want him to activate his force field straight away, so that's also another alternative. With example 3, if you don't have Atomic, then you can use Carnage and make him sped up with Flashy, and then you could use Garo, for example, who was another hero backup stick unit, so you can use Garo as a grappler alongside Alloy. Alloy is still a decent grappler to use. He does ult damage reduction, so that is very handy and keep your team a little bit live, and then you can still use Sky King because you're using that combo of Carnage and Flashy Flash. Or you can go with example 4, where if you just started the game and only have Gary Ganshroop and then decided to pull for Flashy, then your main DPS could be Suyu, who's currently the best SSR you can get for free in the heroic tickets currently. Otherwise, if you got Genos, for example, from the hero backup stick, you could also use him because direct damage can still be very useful in this current meta, trying to nuke out the entire team. So if you do have either one of them, they can be your main DPS. And if so, then you can use Tank Top Master to help out Soru if you do decide to use Soru, for example, because then that just increases his charge damage even more. And then as a substitute for Grappler, you can also use Lin Lin because her heals, they are still very useful. And then Esper, you can use Phoenix Man, which a lot of people got for free as well during the end of last year. So Phoenix Man is still very useful to use if you do have him as a spare Esper to use. So those are some examples of what some teams can look like with Flashy Flash. So going through the main takeaways from this unit, he will become the fastest unit in the game for a very long time, surpassing King as the best speedster to use for PvP, so it will be more than mandatory to use Flashy for the rest of the year if you are very competitive in PvP. He also introduces the new and overpowered mechanic of completely removing speed boost from enemies, so he will counter all existing speedsters except for other Flashies, and especially with the cruel tactic being released this early, no matter what, he'll activate his ultimate, so using the other speedsters will be very hard to maximize when going up against this cruel Flashy combo. His AoE ultimate attack is completely free, which saves you an extra ultimate attack for your other characters, as if you were to use someone like Sonic V2, then he would have to use his attack first on your team and then waste that to energy from his ultimate. That is extremely irrelevant during this current era. He will also be very helpful with inflicting many instances of bonus damage, so he can be constantly attacking your enemies as the battle goes on without needing it to be Flashy's turn in order to attack, as he inflicts bonus damage whenever his evasion does get triggered. So he is very handy in just hitting those enemies over time. And finally, much like Silverfang, he reduces all forms of damage except dot from his evasion mechanic. But what's even better, and that far surpasses Silverfang's evasion, is that when he is awakened too, he can allow the ally in the same column to also trigger evasion, which will make your strongest unit survive for much longer in battle, and that can be really critical as the battle progresses through. Now, going through some cons about this unit, he does require massive investment because you do have to pull for his keepsake in order to unlock his 5p to compete against other Flashy users, as well as his Awaken 2 in order to get that extra 10% speed bonus from his speed growth stone. Plus, you need to max out his gears and at least get his keepsake through 3 stars, which requires a total of 351 sacks. So you will have to go all in on him, otherwise you should skip him. He is a duelist, which is a very competitive slot with this current meta, as Geru Ganshroop can only allow 2 units that are not either grapplers or espers. As to fill in those slots, Atomic Samurai is definitely the favored one to fill at least one of those 2 slots, but the second slot could be replaced with other units such as Child Emperor, Boros, or even Metal Bat in certain situations, so it may be hard to fit Flashy into your team. Now, even though he does remove the speed boost of your enemy speedster, the trade-off with that is that he's only able to speed up 1 ally instead of 2, so this makes the column a competitive slot to fill, as you may want Atomic to attack first to deal high amounts of damage, or break through those Undying shields early by using units such as Goketsu or Garo, or even Carnage to activate his out of control buff if you decide to use Cruel Tactic on hero instead of villains. So this sped up ally slot will become very competitive competitive and situational. And finally, he is not useful in PvE. If you were relying on someone to help you out in PvE, Flashy is not that guy. His AoE isn't strong enough to nuke compared to the likes of Child Emperor or Silverfang, and you need speed on his gears in order to maximize his kit and his bonus damage. So you are sacrificing attack stats, as speed is more effective in PvP and a burden in PvE. So he won't carry you in PvE, just keep that in mind. So should you pull for Flashy? So for free to play and low spenders, I would recommend skipping him, as he's only useful in PvP. And now that Sonic V2 is accessible for all players, Sonic is more than enough as a speedster that you can use in PvP, as well as your duelist for Drive Knight Core. So start putting your Sonic in extreme training and get him to 5 stars as soon as possible whenever you can. For mid spenders, I'm also going to recommend that you skip Flashy as well, for the same reason that Sonic V2 can be used as your duelist during the next meta, and then save those tickets for much stronger units such as Deep Seeking. But if you want to be competitive in PvP for a long time, then picking up Flashy is a great option, as he should be the meta speedster for about 8 months before Zombie Man takes that throne. So it will be quite a while until he gets replaced by another speedster. But only pull him if you can get his keepsake alongside him. Otherwise, I would not recommend picking him up, and then save both of those tickets instead. And for high spenders, since he will be your main speedster for the rest of the year, go all out with his keepsake and Second Awakening. He's going to make your team much stronger and tankier with that evasion buff that he can grant to one ally of your choosing, which can be a massive game changer. And now I present the predicted SSR Plus timeline for global. So the good news here is that they haven't settled on releasing double banners or 2 SSR Plus units for this month, which is a good sign, and you can save your black tickets for longer until Deep Seeking gets closer, as August is only 2 months away. Otherwise, I still predict that Phoenix Man will be the next wheel character during July, even though he was supposed to be released way earlier, but this is Moonton we're talking about, so who knows what the hell they're gonna do. Anyways, that wraps up the end of the video. I'd love to give shoutouts to all of my YouTube members, as you guys are massive contributors in making this type of content possible. If you're new to the channel and enjoyed the video, then please subscribe to my channel and click on the notification bell to stay up to date in keeping your One Punch Man account the strongest. Feel free to leave a like and a comment down below, and check out my Discord and membership links in the description for if you have any questions, and either myself or the community will answer for you. So anyways, that's all for today, and I will catch you all next time.